to the next movie we're going to talk about, which is Superbad, which is mainly just a really, really horny movie. But before we get there, I have one little correction that I don't think anyone really knows about, but I care about like saying. Was I originally was basing this whole thing off of letterbox entries, and then I got about 5 minutes into the interview and like looked it up, and it's an uncredited cameo for about a split second. So I made the executive decision to cut that because she's not in it, and on the letterbox it's like uncredited. So I'm going by credited roles now. And if I decide to do like an extra guest one where it's like, oh yeah, here's her in SNL or her in brief second cameos in the interview, like stuff like that, then I'll do that when it comes. But that's the other major thing. Back to Superbad, which just right out the gate is like, these are horny teenagers and they're gonna be horny as hell, which is fine. It's just like one of those things where it's not quite the vibe you're in. So it's like a little weird. Little vibes are a little off, but like it's not a bad thing. And I think the other parts that we're gonna talk about balance it out enough to where I'm like, this is fine. I'm okay with this. But my first note and most immediate one was like when they're in the school, some of the things they're doing when they're like jerking themselves off like immediately behind the girls. I'm like, how is no one noticing this? Like, what? It's not like he's 10 feet away doing that. He is quite literally right behind her, and he doesn't even notice. Which I'm like, that is a little weird, but this movie clearly does not care. But it also makes fully aware that there is just a single brain cell between every single person in this movie, and none of it is shared in a remotely equal way. But it's funny. That's really what I like. My biggest thing was it gets funny. Which is really, it gets funnier when it stops being horny, which is mainly through the introduction of the cops, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. But they're probably easily the funniest part of this movie, and it's not even close. They are just living life, doing bits, running the set, and I'm like, yes, this is comedy right here. And they're honestly funnier than like the whole lead cast. But it's also just like two big comedy guys, because this whole cast is just like a comedy icon lineup for most of it. And then we have our good pal Emma Stone, who is Jules in this, which is the love interest for Jonah Hill's character, who is in it for maybe 5 minutes total, and is the only like normal functioning character in this entire thing. Because she's like, no, I don't want to have sex. I want to get to know you before I start a relationship with you. And you're like, damn, she really is the most sane human in this cracked out cast of characters. But I'm glad she's in it. I'm glad there's someone in there who's like sane. Because most people are just like, they've been on the internet too long. If this was set in 2023, they needed to touch grass for a little bit. Because like, even as a teenager, like, those kids gotta chill. They need to take a break, take a hard look at themselves, and be like, you are too horny. But there are moments in this where I'm like, okay guys, you gotta chill. Like, relax. But on the whole, I think I would enjoy this more if I was like under the influence, where I can just like buy into the horniness and be like, hell yeah, me too. Just like spewing nonsense that like I don't actually believe, but I'm just like down for the ride. Whereas like from the get go, when they're just being hornier than all hell, I'm like, not today. Today is not the vibe. but it's really just them. Every other character in this movie, every extra is just an NPC. They just there's like stuff going on. Like if I saw someone making sexual motions literally right behind a person, like I'd be a little concerned. Like at least get a little sus look. But like most people are just like, it's a Jonah Hill guy. That's his guy. You know, he's just there. That's McLovin. He's just a weirdo. But I did appreciate that at least the message of this was like, you can't be so like, it was like you gotta chill, because they all needed to chill. And also because I got like an hour and a half into it, and I was like, oh, there's still some runtime left. They've both been rejected, or whatever has happened. And it's like, oh, you have to form relationships while sober too. And it's like, no way. No way. It's like, yeah, that's how it be. But as they said in the movie, as they said, consent is key, fellas. You need to consent. They didn't want to drink the tea. Don't give them the tea. You both have to want the tea and not be drunk, because it's just not good when you're drunk. Don't do it. But the one thing I am glad though is that I did not watch this in a public setting, because just like having random off things of dialogue, I'd be like turning down my volume of my phone. Because when I watched it, I was lying down on my couch with it on like one volume for like most of the movie, maybe two if there was no one around, because I'm like, I don't need people hearing this. Even if it isn't like any like noises, it's just like the things they're saying. I'm like, okay, nobody needs to hear that right now. But I'm glad the two boys are gay. I'm glad they both found their love, their male friendship. They don't need the women, they have each other, and that's the best part. The girls are in it for 5 minutes, and they barely have any development. Besides, Emma Stone is not down for drunk interactions. She wants to be sober and form a relationship. And the other girl, whose name I quite literally don't remember, she just also likes him sober too, which is cool. Because the ending of this was just like, yep, they sure are going off to go do their own thing. And I'm like, it's cute, but I'm also like, I don't see these relationships lasting very long, to be completely honest with you. But that's high school, I guess. But my only complaint with the ending is that I don't believe that Jules and the other girl ever interact. I'm like, you two are not the same person. You do not connect with each other. There's nothing here. You're just here so we can end the movie in a nice, neat way. But I didn't really care about the boys after a point. Once they introduced the cops, I was like, just put the cops back on screen. They're funny. I like Seth Rogen, and I think Bill Hader is his name. Both funny guys. And I'm like, man, I just want to see them. I don't care for the rest of these guys. I just want to watch these cops be really horrible cops for 2 hours. Like, I want them to have a good time. I don't want to be dealing with like teenage love and guys who got to touch grass infinitely more than they are. But that's just how the movie is, I guess. They just want to put all the things in. They got to make a horny comedy. And I think it's like on the whole like a pretty like decent movie. Like I don't think I'll really ever watch it again unless I'm like in a very specific circumstance with like a very specific crowd. But like most of the people I would show this to would be like, I don't like what he's saying there. That's not okay, pal. Which in their defense is true for many of the lines and many of the actions of the characters. especially considering one is like committing a crime for most of the movie. But we're just not going to talk about that one, and we're just going to move on. But on the whole, I don't really have a lot to say. In my ranking, it's below the Gangster Squad cutoff. So it's not like the worst one, which isn't hard to do. The worst of this series are very, very bad. But, like, it's not my favorite of the bunch, which was probably pretty obvious. It's definitely one of the more okay ones. And I think in the grand scheme of things, it may be higher than other things. But it didn't make me want to hurt someone, which is a plus, I guess. Somehow we've reached that point here where I'm like, this was fine. I'm not advocating for these characters. They are hornier than they need to be, or than they really should be. But, like, they're not the worst people in the world. They're not murderers. But, actually, are they murderers? No, they're not. No, never mind. Never mind. It's insane that I had to question that for a second. Because the last, like, half hour plus movie, there's a lot that happens where I'm like, did they commit a crime? I mean, they committed several crimes. They bought liquor underage. They ran from the cops. They noise complaint. That's one. I don't know if it was really them specifically, but, like, they did that. There's probably disturbing the peace somewhere. I don't even know if that's a law. That just seems like a thing that would be in this movie. And there's probably like 5 more. Honestly, there's probably like 8. Well, underage drinking. There's a lot of that. And then again, there's probably like 8 more laws they broke. I'm not counting. I don't really care. This is a movie. It's not real. The cops are probably breaking like 2 more just by not doing their jobs. On the whole, it was fine. Solid 3 out of 5. Right in the middle of the ranking. Watch it if you want. Don't watch it without headphones or in a public space where other people can also see it unless they're also down for it. Consent. They gotta consent to it. This feels like a movie you should consent to watching. Because going into this blind and just the first like 5 minutes and just seeing how horny they are, you're like, okay, sorry guys, put the wrong movie on. So ask for consent before you show this movie to your friends. That's my only request.